completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hairloss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Well, welcome to the show, people. Joseph Tillman, how are you? Joseph W. Tillman. What's going on, my man?
For that. Not a whole lot. Kind of boring week that I've had. You know, not much going on. That was a nice screen change there so you could fix the monitor. Good job.
Yes.
I like that.
And I had to do that manually because my Stream Deck is no longer working with this fucked up system that we have. We will update it. It's still old school analog, and I feel pretty good that I am somehow still able to get squeeze every last penny out of this. No pun intended. Jeez, I got to stop.
How appropriate.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. Some interesting news. So I have a meeting. Oh, Jesus, people are texting me already. I have a meeting. Why is that on? It was actually yesterday. So there is a new dermatology publication that is about to be launched. They came to us. Let's say it's a new version of an older publication that's about to be launched. They came to us and they want us to provide them with all of the hair transplant content. And they want to utilize our members as writers, essentially contributors. So I just got the deal. We just sent back the paperwork. And now members of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons will have the ability to publish their findings, their thoughts on the industry, their, in practice, the practice of medicine issues, what's going on in hair from their perspective. That's never really been done before in something that's mainstream, something that both practitioners are going to see and consumers are going to see. So it's exciting because, well, I don't have to write everything for once.
For once.
Now, I will probably, I don't know. I told them that I would provide the basic line editing and then they can do the rest with their editors. So maybe I'll look it over, I'll do it myself, or maybe I'll just hire someone to do it depending on the time restrictions. But, no physicians in this field have ever really had this type of access. And, we have a group of some really smart guys who bring a lot to the table, who can offer insights that are just not the typical, like, Hair Transplant Forum International, nonsense, not the typical kind of like industry trade rag stuff that you see.
Yeah.
But really, practical and procedural information that either novices, or even experienced physicians could kind of glean from. And it's also going to be good for consumers because they're going to get the option to kind of have a little bit more insight into what these papers are like, how, these ideas are formulated. And the truth of the matter is for a lot of these publications, like say, for instance, for a real journal, there are different levels of journals, and a lot of people can get a lot of bullshit published just because they know the editors, just because they, and also they know the peer reviewers, so they can get shit pushed through. So while this particular circumstance isn't where it's going to be kind of like peer-reviewed papers, it's going to be more editorial. It's going to give physicians, again, and consumers the opportunity to kind of like read the reality of what's happening in this industry, not just from our point of view, but from the physicians who are performing the surgery and who are seeing the day-to-day stuff, and they're not going to these physicians are not going to have to worry about the politics involved by maybe upsetting the wrong person in an organization, by exposing certain realities of the industry. So I think it's compelling.
That'll be fresh.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
It's great. I just signed a thing today. I'm just like I knew it was happening. I made the negotiation. I thought it was going to be fun. I don't normally send out emails to our members, but maybe I'll do that. My hope is that our members actually listen to this broadcast. And then once
There's probably a few listening today.
I hope so. But maybe what I'll do is I'll pick the first 10 to present some stuff. I've guaranteed basically 4 pieces of either a Q&A, a video, or an article every month, for sure. But I could provide more, and they will publish more. So we have like 60 physicians in the IHRS. So all of them will get a turn and multiple turns if they want. And also we can provide video content, which is great, and is going to get a lot of visibility. So I think that's good news. I think that's exciting and it's compelling for viewers, because a lot of our viewers, look, I like having doctors on the air. I do. But I always kind of felt that if we just have physicians on the air and we just talk about whatever, it's almost like we're just highlighting their practice. It's kind of like what everyone else does. And while in some cases it's fun when someone comes into the studio and they can add a different perspective and answer some questions, and in a lot of cases I just see it as kind of salesy.
Yeah.
Especially the stuff that's out there today.
I will say that the way that you've done it, like when they're in studio, I don't mind saying the way that I do it when I've got them, side by side on my. I try to avoid that, but I do like the fact that patients get to have get an impression of their of a certain doctor if they're considering them, because they may say, the benefit, I think, is that the doctor may say something that actually turns the patient off from having surgery. Maybe with them, who knows? But I like to think that the quality of guests dictates that might actually happen. That someone might say, you know what, Dr. So-and-so said it's probably not a good idea because of X, Y, Z. You know what? I think I'm out. I don't want to have surgery.
Right.
And we got the doctor to thank for that.
That's true.
I've had, for the main event, I've had several people ask for specific doctors to come back, such as Dr. Jerry Cooley, such as Dr. Aaron Nussbaum, such as Dr. Joseph Yaker, and actually all of them. Everyone's like, every doctor that's been on.
Well, they're all really good.
More than others.
I have to say, initially you had a technical issue with Yaker. Yeah. Yaker has a certain way about him that is really approachable, and I think he has a way of explaining things, in an incredibly lucid fashion that I think it's just easy to understand. He's relatable. Yeah. And I'm not saying other doctors aren't, but especially, this guy Yaker he's really relatable. He's young. He's pretty young. I think he's like only about 40.
Thereabouts, yeah.
He's in the trenches. He knows his shit. He was trained by the right people. He was trained in an atmosphere where there was a lot of surgery being performed. Let's put it that way. And then he took those nuances and also just the experience that he had by just performing so much surgery and honed his own craft. And his work is really, it's funny. There's a lot of old timers out there who really think that they are the best of the best. And they have no clue what some of these young guys are doing.
Yeah.
It's spectacular in comparison as far as just their abilities, their attitude towards the patient, their attitude towards their staff, how they kind of, I don't know. I mean, when you're dealing with a guy like Yeager, he just radiates positivity. And I think he makes everybody, every step of the way, feel comfortable.
That's what I hear back from actually people I know that have been to him just for consultation, that he puts them at ease with the truth, actually, because he's brutally honest about things, which is refreshing. But yeah, he's got a certain angle. You know, what's interesting about him is he's one of those guys that some old timers, some of the grand poobahs or the old guard, they don't even know about him because he doesn't go to these conferences. He will go to actual clinics and he'll learn from other doctors, but he doesn't bother with these backslapping, sash wearing events. He doesn't bother.
Well, sadly,
he stays at the office and does work.
Sadly, a lot of the conferences at this point are not necessarily a place to kind of really become fully informed. You know, the talks that are presented, a lot of them are kind of like ego-based. They don't really provide every aspect of a nuance of the surgery or whatever these people are talking about. You know, I've spoken to many of the old timers, and then they're like, you know what? I don't give everybody everything. I keep some stuff back, for myself because it's such a dog-eat-dog industry. So I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, what? So you're going to a medical conference and you're not really sharing all the details of the surgery? And this guy's like, no. Why would I do that? I don't know. Maybe to help your colleagues perform better surgery to help patients?
Can you imagine a cardiac surgeon going in saying, I went to this cardiac conference and I was showing my colleagues how I do some things, but I didn't share all my secrets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what?
Think about that.
It's always been a foreign concept to me. Yeah. Yeah, it's always been a foreign concept. It's like I'm not going to share what I've learned with my colleagues so that they can take better care of their patients. I'm not going to help to improve the standard of patient care. I'm going to keep that secret to myself. Jerry Wong, my doctor, said something really interesting to me one time many years ago when some people were criticizing his sharing of his development of the lateral slit technique, where he was the very first physician to take flat blades. They're actually called Persona blades. That was the brand because they're the sharpest in the industry. And he was the first to take those blades and break them apart into smaller pieces, cut them,
right,
and then to make coronal angle incisions. And he was showing doctors every bit of what he was doing because he was one of the few doctors that believed in sharing everything. But there were, I'll say, individuals that really did not want him doing that and encouraged him not to. And his comeback was, look, I could show 100 people how to do exactly what I do.
And they can do it.
2 or 3 will understand.
Yeah. And that's actually great. I always tell people that I can give someone the keys to the fucking castle, but most people can never open that fucking lock. And that is
several times. And they fall on their face.
Yeah, and that is the reality. It's interesting that you say that because there's other people out there that claim to have, had conversations with physicians talking about cut the size blades, in the early 90s. And I know that these doctors were using hypodermic needles to create these slits.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Jerry gives me shit about money all the time. He really does. And I don't understand it, but I like him and he's good at what he does. And he treats his patients well. He's got a hard on for whatever reason for, my ability to earn or, I'm not allowed to earn anything. But, that's a personal thing. I don't think he dislikes me personally. And I actually think he's a good guy. I don't understand that aspect of things. Just like, dude, come on. Just stop with the money.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone needs to make a living at some point. And what we do is like, anyway, it's just ridiculous. But he deserves a lot of credit. And actually, so does Victor. You know? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I don't think Victor gets enough credit these days for the type of work that he was able to pull off all these years. There's always some people, a group of people, or you know, one or two people taking all the credit for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there are real pioneers out there who have made tremendous strides, and for whatever reason, they're being written out of the history books. And if you go to Europe or Korea, it's as though like these people don't even exist.
Yeah.
In their history books.
100%.
It's fucking ridiculous, really. Guys, let me give out the phone number. It's 888-659-3727. We do have lines open. Give us a call. We did have someone who had asked to call into the broadcast, and then in the last minute, I think he had to go to synagogue. I'm just saying. But we do have lines open, and we're more than happy to answer your questions. This is the live hair loss show. We're here to provide you with the truth about anything and everything hair loss. We're also here to provide you with really the inside information about how this industry ticks. As a consumer, it is my opinion that you guys need to know everything that's going on. Sometimes we talk about the inside baseball on this broadcast, and some guys, it goes over the heads of some people. But that inside baseball could be vital as far as your decision making is concerned.
Yeah.
You're making a decision to have surgery that's going to last you a lifetime. Our mantra is surgery is a last resort. When it comes to my organization, my organization, there's not a doctor who is either applied or accepted into the organization that doesn't have at least one patient who is unhappy with the results. That is the nature of cosmetic surgery. And some surgeons, even some really well-known surgeons, have many unhappy patients walking around because they've been performing surgery for 30 years. They made a lot of mistakes. There are some surgeons out there who live in glass houses that will, criticize other people for their mistakes and forget how many doctors have to repair the mistakes, first of all, of everybody else. That's just the nature of this game.
Mm-hmm.
Nature of the game. It's the way it works. So if you're considering hair transplant surgery, understand, no matter what you read online, no matter where you get your information, if you don't do your due diligence, and I'm not talking about just talking to some, patient advisor from any specific clinic and just listening to them. You have to understand that the majority of these people are trying to sell you a fucking procedure. They will do anything, say anything, lie about anybody, shit on their competitors to make sure that you get in that chair. Except for Joe.
I would even say that if you are doing your due diligence, and this comes down to a personality preference in many cases, but if you're doing your due diligence and you are, visiting clinics, if you have the wherewithal to actually visit multiple clinics in various locations that you're considering, if you are serious about your research, which all of you should be, I think the number one, I've been thinking about this a lot today, the number one, because I get this question a lot, the number one red flag. I've not really talked about this before, but the number one red flag for me is if you're talking to the doctor, and I think it's important to ask the doctor, where would you go if you were to have a hair transplant? So that you can get kind of an honest answer about what they think about some of their colleagues. If they give you an answer such as, only if I could clone myself, I'd have hair transplant surgery and let him do it, or if they speak in superlatives about how they are so superior to everyone else, walk out the door.
Run, don't walk. Run.
Because when you're talking to a doctor that has that degree of narcissism, it's great to be confident with your work. Like you need to have your doctor be confident with their work, with the quality of their work. I think that's a given. But to the point where they will put down their colleagues and not elevate someone that's accessible to you, as opposed to on the other side of the planet where you have little to no chance of going, run. If your name is Dave, there should be a Dave-shaped hole in the wall.
That's funny.
From you in your quick exit. That's a Looney Tunes reference. Jashiki in the chat room says all surgeons are narcissistic, though, to a degree, and that kind of comes with being a doctor. Like you, and I understand that you go through the mill to come out on the other side as a licensed medical doctor. That's a big deal. So there is a degree of narcissism that's warranted, I believe, a small amount, but not to the point where you place yourself above others. I think that's dangerous.
But I think there's a big difference between having some confidence and maybe, I'm not even going to call it narcissism, and like a pure, true, visible narcissistic personality disorder coupled with other disorders. There's a big difference. Now, I've known some physicians who, it's funny. I have to say that in my 26 years in this field, and it's funny because somebody asked me this question yesterday through text, and it was an interesting question to me. It was a young guy who doesn't really know much about the field, but he's in the field. He has a very skewed view. And his question to me was, let me ask you this question. How did you get so many arrogant, this is how he posed it, arrogant doctors to do FUE surgery? You all right, Joe?
Sorry, the phone lines are not working.
Really?
I just tried calling. Yep, it says it's temporarily unavailable.
It's on. Let's see.
You plugged it in?
Yeah. Try again.
Let's try it again.
I'll try it right now.
Trying again. I got it.
Isn't that some shit? Is it ringing?
The number you've reached is temporarily unavailable.
That is fucked up.
Yeah.
Let me, what?
Did you pay your bill?
Yeah, the bill's paid automatically. Anyway, I'll give it the phone number, 888-659-3727. I'll try to unplug and plug the phones again, and hopefully we were able to fix that. But my answer was, in my 26 years in this field, I've only met one doctor who I would consider to be arrogant, who I've ever worked with. Everyone else, for the most part, has been a fucking pleasure. I mean, yeah, there's always personalities that you have to deal with. There's always
pleasure.
Yeah, in comparison, there's always personalities that you have to deal with, and that's just the way that it is. But as far as arrogance, the way that this young person phrased that, I found that to be very telling and interesting. But it made me think. I was like, you know what? I've never really run into anybody that I've worked with directly that was arrogant or like super narcissistic, except for one person. I don't think he was happy that response. I'm going to let you finish that. I'm going to see what's up with the phones. Go ahead, speak.
I'd say I'd say 2 doctors that I know of, but one definitely worse than the other. But I think it's important that you guys really tune in on this one, because I actually never talk about the biggest red flag that I see, and I do think that is the biggest red flag, because other things can be fixed if there's something wrong with the actual clinic, with some sort of protocol that can be fixed. Even if there's some sort of issue where patients have, maybe the clinic there's a rash of patients that are having less than perfect results, from their surgeries, that can be fixed. But what cannot be fixed is overconfidence and narcissism, because when you're a true narcissist, you can't make mistakes in your mind as a narcissist. So it's something I think that people should really hold as, if not the top red flag, then at least in the top 5 things to note down as a big no if they run into it. So I hope that helps, because I have had that question a lot over my career, and I've really never answered it. I've been kind of wishy-washy. It's like, well, different red flags for different people, classified in certain ways. But I think it's fair to say narcissism, like obvious narcissism, where it's some sort of personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, actually, would qualify. So I hope that helps some of you that have been asking that question on me over the years. I actually had that just the other day, actually. What's the number 1 red flag? So that's my answer. Narcissism, or a high degree of it. I hope that helps. Rob Harrington. Hey, Joe.
Dude, all I can tell you is I don't know what is up with my number, by the way. I just plugged it in, and it says that it's temporarily unavailable. So maybe it's good that this guy couldn't call in. That really sucks. Let's see if we can figure something else out. Is there any way that you can take calls on your end, Joe?
Maybe.
Oh, wait a second. I got a call. Someone's on hold.
Yeah, that's me. It works. Okay, so the line works.
All right. Guys, call in 888-659-3727. For some reason, it was unavailable to me. Maybe it had to do with the internet.
Could be.
But yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting field. There's a lot of good people in it. Let me put the camera on me. And there's a lot of bad people in it, unfortunately. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Rich from New York. I called you a few weeks ago.
Rich, welcome to the show, man.
Hello,
Sorry,
Rich.
we had some problems with the phone. What's up?
Hey, how you doing, Joe?
Pretty good, man.
Okay. Last time I called you, because it was like 20 years in between we last talked. So,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
you're like an old school fan, man, from the radio.
Yeah, AM radio. But what I was doing was, last time I talked to you, I was telling you about the oral minoxidil.
Yeah.
So there was just someone in chat also who just had a hair transplant on the oral minoxidil also. So my thing is, I started with like 2.5. I moved it up, but people need to know about side effects, which is not so much for heart or anything like that, but I grow hair in my forearms like I never did.
Well, that's pretty.
Hair in my legs.
That's pretty. How about your eyebrows?
I still can't. No, believe it or not, my eyebrows, they grow a little bit quicker, but I always had thick eyebrows where, women say, oh, I just want to tweeze them for you,
Yeah.
But I still can't grow.
See, I've always had like thinner eyebrows with blonde ends. So in when the light, it kind of looks like I have short eyebrows. So the one reason I would like to take oral minoxidil is to thicken those bad boys up and maybe get some pigment into them.
Well, it does add pigment. All my hair got darker to a point where people say, did you dye it? Because I went from like medium brown. Now it's dark brown.
Amazing. All right, so that's not all. That's interesting, and you've gotten more hair growth everywhere.
I got more hair growth everywhere. You do got to. I mean, when I say everywhere, it's everywhere, but not the beard. Like I still can't grow a beard till like I'm 46.
Well, here's the thing: if you have either really no hair follicles, or meaning that the hair follicles never really produced much hair to begin with, it may, in some people, it can cause those follicles to kind of like reactivate. But if they haven't been growing your entire life, then you may not ever get that beard growth.
Like the online joke is like, not the online, like with my family, the joke is, okay, I'm 46. It's like, I let it grow out for a week. They're like, where is it? The mustache. Like I could never get the sideburns to grow, not even remotely. Like 10 days, it looks like anything. But I see people 18 years old and they get full grown, thick beards. Anything that the oral minoxidil grew, say like on like my chest, it was just like, it's like not Petrow's hair, but it's like not real. It's like longer, makes it longer and darker.
Yeah.
But you could just go like that and take it right off. So I never had that thing, but it does make everything darker. My eyelashes were already like super long already, so I really don't know, if that, I think everybody reacts differently and depends on the dosage. Because there's a person there that I think they said they were on 2.5. 2.5 wasn't enough for me because I was on topical for so many years.
Well,
so for me, I had to go higher.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're doing okay. You're not having any other adverse side effects besides a little hypertrichosis in some areas.
None at all.
Yeah.
No. I take a water pill just in case there was some edema, but nothing. It doesn't affect the blood pressure, not one bit. And I can't say it's for everybody, I'm just saying for me, at this stage in the game, it was more of like, when you're putting that stuff in your hair, like the Rogaine, it becomes a hassle after a while, especially when you reach your gains, Now you're just maintaining, and then it takes a long time to dry, and you're just like, damn, this sucks,
It's a pain in the ass. Listen, I started, there was no finasteride when I started to deal with it, try to treat my hair loss. So what did we have? We had minoxidil. Well, we didn't even have Rogaine. Rogaine wasn't even approved yet. So I had a physician who's compounding minoxidil, and like initially it was kind of like with a propylene glycol alcohol base. It was a mess, man. And you go to the compounding pharmacy, they'll crush it up, with their mortar and pestle, and they mix this thing up, and then you wake up in the morning and you got white powder all over your head. But that's how I started. And then when Rogaine was approved, there were a couple of doctors. I used something called the Leuenberg formula, which was well known for a while. I used to go to this guy's office. I kind of knew this guy, but it was all like, basically he started off using Rogaine bottles, which is interesting, and he would add tretinoin and what else did he add? I don't know if he had azelaic acid. What did you say?
I asked you if it was azelaic acid.
Yeah, it may have been. I think maybe he added that later. I'm not 100% sure. So long ago, but he actually, when I brought him an article from the New York Times about finasteride, and that they were going to be testing it, they were doing trials for hair loss. He warned me against that. He said, do not take that. And then the next time I went to visit him, there was, I would say, propaganda about, anti-finasteride propaganda all over his office, like in the waiting room, shit like that. That's when I knew I better get my hands on this shit. And I did, So,
it's like mainstream media. Don't, it's like whatever they say, when they say, hey, we're telling you the truth, this is good for you, go the other way.
Well, for a lot of, I would say in a lot of instances, you have to look at everything with a jaundiced eye. Anything that's online, anybody that's espousing any bullshit, yes, I would say that I'm I question everything the media says.
Pretty good on your side, though, because for you at that age, that doctor, really, there was no, like, now we have the internet. Now we could, like, look up stuff. But for that guy, I mean, I would have probably taken it as gospel at first if he said stay away from it, you know?
Well, yeah.
The fact you were smart enough to be like, hey, if he's saying stay away, let me look to see why he's saying to stay away. Because that's, to me, is always ask questions, you know, no matter what.
100%. Listen, I think that I had the wherewithal, luckily, but it was not just being smart enough. It was being smart enough and desperate enough to take a chance, even though he's claiming that it was going to have feminizing effects. I would lose my facial hair. I would possibly grow breasts. I would have trouble, you know, sexually. He actually said your hips will grow. Like, it was crazy shit. So
your hip bones will widen.
So
That's
I went to a physician who I knew, and I said, "Look, do me a favor.
Spencer, can you stand up? Let me check your hips, okay?"
Dude, it's like if I stand up, I look like a Dominican chick. That's just. I got an ass like a Dominican chick. No, so and only a New Yorker would understand that. But,
oh yeah,
yeah. But what was I going to say? Oh, so finasteride doctor. Okay, so I went to this guy. Said, "Would you do me a favor? Would you look this up in the physician's desk reference because it's already being prescribed as Proscar, and let me know what you think about the adverse side effects and the adverse events." And his exact words were, he has never seen any drug in the PDR that had such a small list of adverse side effects. I said, "Do you think that this is going to cause any issues with me?" And he did a little more research. He goes, "It shouldn't. You're young. And if it does, you can just get off the drug." And he was willing to prescribe me a 5 milligram dose. And I started at 5 milligrams daily. 5 milligram dose.
Is the same guy who told you that it was going to make you grow hips, you were going to be Shakira?
No. This is another guy. This is another guy. And so he actually then started to prescribe it to friends of mine, you know, who wanted to get on the drug, and no one was prescribing it yet. So it was a grand experiment, I'll tell you that. But I started off on 5 milligrams. I had no adverse side effects. At one point, when I went through the initial dread shed everyone talks about that no one knew about, because online was basically in its infancy then, I thought it stopped working. I upped my dosage to 7.5 milligrams. No adverse side effects. And then as I started to read more about it and more information came out online, and once it was approved at a 1 milligram dosage, I started to titrate and figure out what worked best for me. And I was able to do intermittent therapy for 30 years once I was loaded up on the drug without any adverse side effects, at least that I'm aware of, you know. And, you know, to me, early intervention is absolutely key. And sadly, in today's world, for many reasons, but too many young guys are really too shit scared to intervene properly or early. And they need to be advised that, look, this is the reality of what you're going to be dealing with starting hair loss at a young age. These are really the only options you have. You're probably going to be wasting your time with the other options, including some of the, you know, biologics that are being pimped. You know, I'm not saying they all don't work, but no one really has the real data. And some of the most PRP that's being pimped out, sadly, is not even real PRP, but it does work if it's the right PRP and if it's the right platelet count and the right measurements are taken. And measurements are taken, you know, once the blood is drawn, and you could see how many, you know, you could see your own natural platelet count. None of that stuff's being done in most practices. I know I'm going on a rant, but I feel very lucky.
Last time I was on a rant, I said, you know what, I'm going to. Because I also wanted to ask you about, like, have you ever heard of when people are taking, like, maybe having adverse, like, getting worse from, like, say, taking DUT, like, you know, like 3 times a week with the finasteride, and actually people getting worse with maybe the hairline?
Say that again about you said dutasteride?
Yeah.
You're combining it with finasteride? Now, look, I can't give you medical advice. You know, I'm not a doctor.
Oh, no, not medical advice. I'm not on. I stopped that a while ago. I'm just saying, have you ever heard of, at least anecdotally, people maybe at the hairline doing worse while they're adding gut or even just on that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you into a panic when I said I can't give medical advice. I only have to say that because I'm not a doctor, and so I'm not. I know that you're not asking me for medical advice, but I need to preface everything.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
you got to protect your ass, Spencer.
Well, I'm not a doctor, but I have a lot of experience, and there have been thousands of people who have contacted us over the years who have similar, experiences, and a lot of anecdotal reports. And I hate the term anecdotal evidence because it's like an oxymoron. If it's anecdotal, it's not evidence based.
We also don't have legitimate studies, and you didn't get enough of us in one room to actually. Okay, what's the? But
the answer is yes. I have heard of people who have combined the drug, and all of a sudden they start to go through a tremendous teal fluvium. Sometimes, as you said, the hairline just starts to recede rapidly. We don't know why, and part of it is. You want to tell them, well, it's possible, it's temporary, it means the drug is working and it's going to grow back if you stick with it.
That's what you would say, a shed, but what if it's starting, what if you were pretty much stable and you just got, say, greedy?
I'm not a fan of anybody. First, that's why we talk about hair greed. I think you want to be on one medication at a time. If you're on one 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, and I know it's a 5-alpha ductase inhibitor that's inhibiting type 1.
Inhibitor, yeah.
That's inhibiting type 1 5-alpha reductase. I don't see the need to be on a type 1 and then a type 1 and type 2 5-alpha reductase. I kind of think that could be overkill, and who knows? What's going on? What did I miss?
Nothing. Unrelated.
I think that's an interesting experiment. I know a lot of guys online are experimenting like this. And I want to be clear also. There is value to the guys who are now on Reddit and elsewhere who are willing to experiment in themselves and then report back on the shit that they're doing to themselves. Now, I wouldn't want to be one of those guys, but I have to say that
I experimented though, Spence. I did it. You know what? I said I got greedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I figured or you figure, okay, I don't want to up the dosage in the ProScar, so let me get this and maybe add something that's newer, even though it's supposed to be blocking like a slightly different receptor, maybe a little bit better. But I did get greedy, and then it was like, okay, I did an experiment. I think I was on it for at least a year and a half, and it does had some side effects of when you I can't say for sure because you know how you say that's why you only stick with one, because if I was on both of them, so I can't say is it them combined that was causing some side effects
when you're on finasteride alone, how are the adverse events? Any adverse events?
I didn't have much. I mean, the thing on steadiness and stuff like that.
On what?
On steadiness, off balance and stuff.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
And a little bit of more like brain fog, like pure numbness. But that was, you got to realize, and I think Joe knows this also, this is name brand, So both of these are name brand. It's much stronger. It's not like I was just taking generic stuff that this was name brand.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and you don't notice right away because I stopped it and I mentally feel better, clearer.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a while. And, but I would just say to people, just don't get greedy.
Well, that's the whole thing. And I'm sorry if I seem distracted. I'm reading something. But, that's the whole thing. Hair greed, it's a real thing. And I always tell people, how could you live with the amount of hair that you have right now? And if the medication continued to work with you the way in which it's working, would you be happy in 5 years? And if people really think, they'll be like, I'd like more hair, but if I can keep this shit, yeah, of course, I'd be thrilled. And once you mess with that, you can lose that shit, man. Or you could have adverse side effects, and you could really fuck yourself up. And it happens all the time.
Spence, what's the number one thing that people do? They say, when you lose it at a young age, right? They say, if I could just hold on until I'm 25 or 30, they have this false thing. Like, all of a sudden, by the time you're 30, you're just going to become acceptance. Like, you're just going to accept stuff.
Yeah, all of a sudden, you're 30 years old, you're old, nothing matters.
Yeah, that's all BS. It matters just as much. But they have this...
Yeah.
No, they have this theme that I see it on the Reddit and everywhere. If I could just hold off till I'm 30, I'm like, what do you think? You're going to make your money, you're going to get a wife, and then you're going to let yourself go bald, and she's going to be okay with it? You know? I mean, that's what they seems like their thinking is.
Of course.
If I could just hold on to it for 5 to 10 years, I'll be okay.
Yeah, because they're young and stupid. That's the way it works. Just young and stupid. They don't know. I mean, if you don't know, you don't know, right? But yeah, there's an argument to be made for that on a cultural basis. Like in some cultures, if I can just, I actually understand this because it's actually pretty common where I live. I've talked to a lot of guys like this. If I can just hang on to it until I get married, because they can't get married without hair. There are some cultures where it's actually frowned upon if the groom is bald, and so they'll get their hair transplant, or they'll get on the medication to maintain what they have, and then they'll let it go once they're married. And everyone's fine with it.
Isn't that kind of like false pretenses though? Because like you went on and then like you should be by law have to keep that hair as long as you're married to the woman.
then you look at coming up with laws of that she has to adhere to while you're married too, and that ain't going to happen.
You have plausible deniability though. You could say, look, the reason I'm losing my hair is because of her. I'm married.
I'm sure there are people that say that. That would make sense for some situations.
Actually,
yes.
I believe there's probably some proof that you could, the stress you can have from some of that. I'm just kidding, but I do think that
there are ideas that cortisol buildup, too much cortisol production, which is caused by stress, can block the whole finasteride process that goes on with that, or it can help to accelerate hair loss. There is a school of thought for that, so I can see how that would be used in a court of law.
It's not
for
just
divorce.
like that. You know how you ever have like where people like when they first start losing it, people ask them, "Well, have you gone through any trauma, or you've?" Well, we know a lot of times like severe weight loss can definitely cause that. Drastic.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say, have you been under stress lately? And it's like, who isn't,
Dude, exactly. I have to say, though, I mean, there are ways to control your stress. I live in and the work that I do, and I learned this pretty early on I would say that I was probably, before cancel culture even existed, there were those in this industry who were trying to cancel me. And so it's been going on forever, for 26 years to some degree. And every few years, the shit pops up again. After the first time, after I kind of learned how to deal with it, as everything came in, as I heard information, instead of having visceral responses to it, I kind of actually learned how to control my breathing and just kind of like put my head down and deal with every aspect of what I had to deal with in order to not only counter it and to deal with it and take every punch, but then to counter punch.
Believe it or not, stuff like that does work. You do like deep breaths in, like you hold it for like 5 seconds, and then breathe it back out.
Now it's like,
for a couple times.
To me now it's like driving a car. Like I'm unfazed. So essentially what I do is like, especially during any type of what most people would consider stressful shit. Like, we're dealing with some bullshit right now, which is, I mean, whatever. It is what it is. And so I get up in the morning, and you obviously have to be ready for whatever it is. You're ready for battle. So I take my, freezing shower, do my shit. I train, and then I get online and I do what I have to do. And everything is done methodically with zero
I
stress.
saw on a subreddit that if you take a freezing shower, your hips get larger.
Dude, you just want me to stand up. How do you know I'm wearing pants? Maybe I don't want to stand up.
That's good.
All right, brother. Listen, we're going to take another phone call, but I love the fact that you've been a fan and a listener for
advice
so
to
long.
people.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're on finasteride and you're doing okay, do not get greedy. Be okay with what you got. If it's working, don't go for the extra half mile. It's not worth the effects. You know what I mean? Keep it what you're doing. That's all I can tell people is do not get greedy. If you're holding on and you are okay, don't look ahead. Look and be content with what you got right now. And that's all I can say.
And that's great advice. And I've been preaching that for 26 years in some form or another. And people still they'll joke about the fact that I paint my hair, my bald spot, and they'll goof on it, whatever it is. But I avoided having surgery because I know it can potentially happen, just to fill in an area that, honestly, if I need hair in the front someday, then I don't want to waste my precious donor. And to me, the gratitude that I have that I just have to paint my bald spot a little bit and put some hairspray on, and I'm 58 years old, it's a fucking gift, man.
It is a gift. All I can say is you're like Batman. You have like one rule. He has one rule. You won't kill. You won't sell out. I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but hopefully it never does. But
well,
I just want to say,
like I always tell you,
both of you guys.
Well, thank you. There's one guy out there that thinks that we have, and it's constantly trying to get that message out there.
Everybody's always going to. You know what?
No,
no one wants to hear the truth. If I tell them on the subreddit, listen, you should be on finasteride if you're going to get a transplant. That's all BS. I'm like. Or if you go to a surgeon who's willing to allow you to direct them of how you want it to look,
not good.
Like they can take notice about what you think is good, but you are your own worst enemy when you're going for a hair transplant. You want the perfect hairline. I tell them if that doctor allows you to dictate, and he doesn't say, hey, leave the office or something like that, to a point where he says, hey, listen, I'm the doctor. I'm going to do what I think is good, not what the patient wants. Because
hold on for a second. Callers, hold on. We'll take your call in a second. First of all, that's very a profound statement and very important. And you could tell you've been listening to the show for 25 years. There was a story that was provided last week about a patient who really, really wanted a body hair transplant. And according to this storyteller, the physician didn't want to do it. Said that it may or may not work, but I'll take your money because I already provided you with some free surgery. Now, this physician apparently allowed this patient to make that decision for him and to push him to the point where, in the end, that surgery failed miserably. And I think that's a great point. A physician.
Yeah, you gotta. I tell anybody with anybody. It's with anything. You got to. If you tell them, it's like you go get a rhinoplasty and you say, I want a little cookie cutter nose, and it doesn't fit your face, they will, any doctor will do whatever you want them to do.
100%.
That's why you have to be, what you and Joe are doing is great, because you have to, Joe mostly, because I saw the 4-year one where he went to Dr. Cole. Your last transplant, Joe?
No, he didn't get his transplant.
I'm sorry?
Cole.
No, I meant the Asian guy.
Dr. Wong.
Dr. Wong, yeah, with all the women.
The other guy does look Asian once in a while, when it gets late.
Every once in a while, yeah, he'll have that Asian look about him.
Yeah.
No, but Joe did a nice thing, and he was so realistic in his outlook. You know what I mean? That was what a healthy thing, and probably more healthy than most people, but. Let
me tell you, Dr. Wong, and again, I'm very honest. He gives me shit about certain things, like if he thinks I'm making too much money or whatever. But he's a good guy, and he's an honest doctor, and he's good at what he does, and I can never deny that fact. This fucking guy, again, sometimes I think to myself, I thought we're on the same team here, Doc. We're all trying to do the right thing. But he's a good guy, and look what he did for Joe. Joe's transformation is no one could have. I don't believe too many people could have done that for Joe, and part of it is, you need to have that type of a hybrid mostly strip type of surgery when you are such an advanced Norwood. It can't be done via FUE. And anyone who claims that it can be, at least for the long term, this guy is 50-something years old. He could be in an Alzheimer's community at this point. And look at his hair. That's going to last. Sorry,
Alzheimer's community.
Tell that to your wife, Joe.
Actually, I can. I could definitely be 55 and over.
No, listen, Joe is. I would suggest anybody to watch Joe's the 4 years ago when he got the last transplant and pretty much the scalp. I mean the crown.
In the crown, yeah.
You need that type of. Joe had 9 others, so he's an expert, but that type of realistic expectations. If you always gonna be never happy if you expect a full head. He expected mild, decent results, and they came out really nice, and he was content with that. He didn't want.
Well, listen,
perfect. Anyways,
no one deserves it more than Joe Tillman. Joe Tillman.
They want New York City out.
All right, brother.
All right. Take care.
Later.
God bless. And everybody, look at the
Thanks for calling, buddy.
Thanks for calling.
Okay,
it's a pleasure, man. Thanks. Phone number is 888-659-3727. So there's a line open now. So if someone wants to try to call in, give it a shot. Other lines are filled. So 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Adrian from Melbourne, guys. How are we?
Adrian, man. How are you?
Adrian.
I have to say, I hear a lot of Australian accents, but there's something about yours that is somewhat more, I don't know, it's like charming. Is it because you're from Melbourne? Is it a better accent?
I don't know. I don't know about that. Well, I think the further north, it's like the opposite to America. I think the further north you go with Australia, the more nasally it gets. And I have hay fever, so my nose
sounds.
Well, the further north you go, it's more, g'day, mate, how are you? It's like they're talking through their nose, It's like, g'day, mate, how are you? Right? And when generally they're talking through grass most of the time up there, but I'm not going to get into those politics. But, some people have said that. When I was in America, I was in New York, and I met this girl, and we were actually dating, and everywhere I went, she'd say, "Oh, hang on, Adrian, just say something." But she just wanted to hear my accent. I think America is the only place in the world where they actually like Australian accents.
Well, I can tell you that it is a clear advantage with the ladies here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in Canada, and in Canada.
Like, I don't have much of a New York accent. So, there's certain words that people can tell that I'm from New York, but in general, somehow that escaped me. I think it has to do with, my education and just, I was around a lot of, let's put it this way, I was born in Brooklyn. And if I would have stayed in Brooklyn, things would have been a lot different. So no one could really normally tell from where I am. But anyway, so go ahead, man. It's great to hear you.
Yeah. Look, I've rung in just wondering if you guys might know anything about the situation with Loniton, with oral minoxidil, or the lack of, more to the point.
Now, the situation as far as what?
Well, for the last year, Loniton has stopped production. And they've been saying it'll start up production in. Oh, you mean
okay?
It was
okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you're talking about the brand name has been basically because the vast majority of minoxidil that's being prescribed is generic minoxidil. So
right,
yeah. So
and Loniton have generic.
Say it again.
Loniton doesn't have a generic, does it?
Well, Loniton is the brand name of minoxidil.
Yeah.
So there's no. So the generic of Loniton is minoxidil. It's so that's that the patent was up many years ago. So most prescribers are prescribing oral, and anything that's compounded, is prescribing generic. and anything that's compounded is generic. So there are times when companies decide to kind of shelve a certain product, especially something that's come out, from the 70s, where most prescribers are prescribing the generic form. Now, my hope is that never happens with Proscar or Propecia. I don't think that it will, because there's a lot of people, especially people who are taking it for their prostates and hair to some degree, who really stick to the brand. So I think they're still doing well enough where they're going to continue manufacturing it. So I don't know what's happening with Loniton. I don't know. I mean, you're telling me that at least in Australia, they say they're going to start manufacturing again?
Well, I've been told that it'll be produced for example, it was September the 10th, and then it was September 30, and now it's October, and the most recent one again has been now December. So I'm just wondering, is it actually going to be brought to a halt? Now, I've also read too, part of this was because of that article, I think a year ago, or more, a bit more than a year ago, on the benefits for hair loss, and everyone was swamped.
Well,
and they don't make much.
Oh yeah, the New York Times article.
But I found that so fascinating, because any doctor in the know has been prescribing oral minoxidil on occasion, but it wasn't their main go-to. But for years, I mean, since I was in this industry almost, there were doctors prescribing it. I remember even Norman Orenschreich back in the day. Now, they were prescribing it at higher dosages, and they weren't really titrating, or they didn't really understand that you can titrate to a lower dose without the adverse side effects. So they were just basically saying, hey, take these 10 milligrams or whatever. So there were people having a lot of adverse effects and events. But yeah, it's been used in hair forever, man. So, but for whatever reason, it just, once the Times wrote about it, everybody jumped on it.
Yeah, that's what I read. And because it's so cheap, Loniton's incredibly cheap here anyway. I mean, it's like $40 Australian for
and it works.
100 tablets of 10 milligrams.
And it works. It's a great adjunct. It's also great for those who feel they're afraid of finasteride, or they haven't done well on finasteride. Look, it's not hitting you in the hormonal level, but it's keeping your hair in an anagen phase for longer.
Yes.
And it could, that could be, depending on the person, 3 to 7 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've really benefited. I mean, it was a noted difference after taking it for probably 4 or 5 months. That not just obviously because it works on all your hair, body, facial, but so the beard hair in my scalp has benefited. The scalp hair itself has benefited.
So tell me about that. Do you think that the scalp hair that was transplanted onto your head while since you were using minoxidil, do you think that it maintained the same characteristics as your beard, or do you think it's taking on more hair or scalp hair characteristics?
I think slight. Look, it's still early days. I mean, I'm really. What am I? I think I'm 8 months now. Hair transplant 2 post-op. I think that from the first one, perhaps it is slow because my hair is generally curly, and now I've styled it back, and I keep styling it back, and I think it's starting to take on a recipient dominance. I really do. It's early days, but slowly.
Well, that was something that was something that was first seen by Dr. Ray Woods of Australia, and everyone said he was nuts. And
I've met him. I know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, listen, he's a character for sure. He has a great voice, by the way. He does a great Elvis impression.
He really had a long weekend. I mean, I could tell you about my consultation with him. It was fucking hilarious. It was crazy. But sorry,
and he likes the Russian ladies. Just
yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've heard.
I'm sure.
I heard.
And like all of us, he likes to have a drink once in a while. But
well, when I went to Sydney to see him some time ago. Oh God, this is 10 years ago, and made the appointment, went to his house, and was told to wait. And then I'm waiting probably half an hour. Then he comes out in a gown with gloves covered in blood, and he looks at me, and then he looks at the scar across the hairline, and then he just says, "That is rat shit."
Oh, my God.
His comment. And I said, "So you don't think it's that good then?"
Yeah.
And
you're like,
anyway,
wait a second. What are you talking about? I was happy. I was just going to come in for a little touch-up.
Yeah, well, I should have said, well, I wasn't here for the scar. What's wrong with that? But I just, I just,
yeah.
well, and then he's running his hands, with blood and everything through my hair. And then I'm like, okay. Then he went on and on about what he would have done. And then anyway, and then he saunters off and he goes back into surgery. And I'm like, so do we have an appointment or not? I was just left out on the limb. But, yeah, he's a crazy guy, funny man.
Hold on, Adrian. I'm going to have to. I want to say something to Joe. Joe, I had to put your levels all the way up, so the levels are low on your end.
Okay. All right. So check 1 2. Check 1 2.
I mean, they're coming in.
2.
They're coming in okay, but they're not as high as mine. And they're not as high as Adrian's. I'll bring Adrian down a little bit.
Let me do it on my end here. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. How's that? Is that better?
It sounds the levels
Check
are coming
1
in pretty
2.
good, much better.
Okay. All right. So some people in the chat room were commenting that my mic is too low. So
but if you get
hopefully that's fixed.
But if you get too close to the mic, you're going into the red. So now you turn up your volume, keep a nice distance, and you'll be good.
Right on. Okay.
I do have sometimes a pain in the ass way of explaining things. I apologize for that. So go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, so anyway, that was Ray. Now, how did I get onto Ray? What were you saying, Spence?
Let me tell you something. Ray Woods, love him or hate him, and no matter what kind of experience I had with him in the past, there was some real paranoia back in the day, and he was really, once things started to go awry, he kind of was like, they thought maybe that I had something to do with it or whatever, and I think that's all water under the bridge. The one thing that this guy does not get credit for, the real credit, is the fact that he really pushed that Woods technique, and he was relentless for me to just take a look at this. Relentless. I've never seen anybody so passionate about anything. And I wasn't avoiding him. I was just like, first he sent me a videotape. I'm like, look, man, I can't just look. This tape doesn't really show me anything. It doesn't show me the technique. It only shows me these slick before and afters, and it was back in the days with video toasters with all these effects and stuff like that. And I remember I told him, I said, look, if you show this to anybody in medicine, they're going to find it to be a little cheesy. And he got really offended. I'm like, I'm trying to help you, man. I said, you have to create something that's more clinical. But he was concerned about showing his technique. And then when I really pushed people into starting to do it, first it was Rob Jones up in Canada, who was like, yeah, I think I could do this shit. I walked him through the technique.
Alan Feller.
Yeah, I walked him through the technique. Like within a week, he was performing it on patients. But good, bad, or indifferent, he was posting that information online, and it started to build some momentum where, I was able to tell other doctors, look, this is serious. This is a great adjunct technique that could really help to change lives if it's perfected. And Alan Bauman was like, he was actually the first not to resist it, like the idea of it. And he was already working on tools to make it happen. So he invented the first actual tool specifically for FUE, hair transplant surgery, the Bauman-Mindex punch. Alan Feller jumped into it. And then I remember, JC, who was initially, his interest was really piqued. And I think his interest was piqued once he really saw that, wait a second, there's tremendous interest here from patients. Maybe I can corner this market. And I think that's positive because, whether it's a financial incentive, whatever it is, moving people in the direction of being able to help other people and create a technique for people who are stripped out. Let's put it this way. If it wasn't for FUE, Adrian, you couldn't have been fixed.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be talking.
Absolutely.
We would not be talking right now. And Dr. Setti and Dr. Bonzal, they would not be performing FUE if all of that stuff didn't happen. So there's a lot of real pioneers who really helped to make this thing move. Not one pioneer, but several, that all a bunch of moving pieces that these guys seem to be written out of the true history of FUE hair transplant surgery. And for the life of me, I can't understand it. And I hate the fact that Ray Woods is nothing but a footnote in these textbooks. It's ridiculous.
And if it wasn't for him, none of the names out there would even know about FUE. FUE wouldn't even been called FUE because Bob Bernstein and
Bill Rasman
Bill Rasman wouldn't have written the first paper that actually named it FUE. It
I
wasn't
remember
even called FUE until those guys named it.
I had a call with JC, and I never forget this conversation. And I was informed that they were working on a paper. I said, "Look, there's going to be a paper published on this." And I never forget when Bob Bernstein told me that he coined the term follicular unit extraction, which I thought was brilliant. Mm-hmm. And I
remember the Woods technique, and that, look, initially Ray was very secretive about it. I guess if he had been a little bit more collaborative from the start, that would have been great. But eventually it got there.
Well, like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, Adrian, all these guys, it's all, they keep the shit close to their vest. It's not treated like real medicine. No one shares the way that they should share. And what's interesting about the beginnings of this field is there were some people that once FUE was put out there in a paper, and there was initially the Fox technique, and then follicular unit extraction, right? There were other doctors who wanted to corner the market, and they had to name it their own. Everyone was trying to name their own techniques to have a fucking chokehold on something as though it's different.
Yeah.
I do FUE, but I do CIT, but I do this and I do that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's not forget fit farming.
Absolutely. That's hilarious, actually.
Yeah.
I did forget that.
Yeah. I know. And that's actually why, look, with Dr. Zarev, who's a brilliant doctor, I've always been very skeptical in some ways because he seems to hold his cards very close to himself about his technique of how he's able to get these incredible Norwood 6 patients. And
I
for
don't
me,
like that.
it's just that I don't like it either. And I just say, no, I think they've just got incredible donors because they seem cherry-picked, in my opinion, because all the patients I've seen, and he doesn't show a lot of them, is that their donors look incredibly healthy. But yeah,
you want my take on it?
Yeah.
Okay. I've not really talked about this before, but I was actually encouraged by. It's interesting how this ties in because I was encouraged by a doctor that I recently let go that I should really take on Dr. Zarev. He was encouraging more doctors to come and become hair transplant mentor members. I didn't really feel that he would qualify, Dr. Zarev, because he's hiding the details of what he's doing. It goes beyond that, but he's hiding the details of what he's doing. He's secretive with his approach. I admire the fact that he takes not 1 hour but 2 hours. Someone mistakenly said it's 1 hour. Everyone does 1 hour. He takes at least 2 hours to do a consultation because he is mapping out the donor area. He is mapping out the recipient area. But I don't like his approach where he's secretive with his actual technique and the tools that he uses. And he's one of those guys that's showing everyone else just enough to be dangerous. He's not showing them the fine minutia of what he does to actually accomplish his goals. And his photographic evidence is too controlled. There's way too much flash on his photos. And I've talked about flash, I can't count how many times, about how it's bad for photos, how it's bad for results, how it's bad for before and afters because you don't have flash bulbs going off around your head 24/7. So that's not how you look walking down the street. It's very misrepresentative of reality. But then to your point, Adrian, you're talking about how the donor areas always look perfect. Part of that is because of the flash, the effect that flash has on in the controlled atmosphere, the controlled environment. But you are correct. He is showcasing patients that had exceptional donor regions to begin with. Even if they're advanced Norwoods, what's remaining is of a high density, a high quality on the individual follicle basis, and you don't really see the patients coming in that are borderline. Not to mention you don't really see any patients, period, that are in fact sharing their own results, which doesn't necessarily disqualify. Like I work with some doctors that don't have a whole lot of like their patients aren't on forums or something like that. But I've seen the patients. I know who these patients are. I've talked to many of them, and I know the work is legit. But overall, I think that look, I know Dr. Zarev. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's definitely passionate and wants to do the right thing. But I know his results don't look like that in person. I'll just say that, and that's just based on a fact of the physics of light. You know, when he's using these such strong flash. So that's how I feel about the whole Zarev phenomenon right now.
Well,
he's basically another Dr. Woods, the way I look at it.
Well, here's how I feel, Adrian. Sure. You know, I did bring him on as an associate member based on Dr. Cole's direct recommendation. Part of the way the IHRS worked, especially when we bring someone as an associate member, if a physician is sponsored by a member of the organization and basically vouches for the doctor, you know, and I was actually able to see his patients in person at FUE Europe, one in particular. I have to say that I was impressed. I was absolutely impressed, but you have to understand this was an older patient who had exceptional donor, who I would say that even the fact that the hair was removed from areas of the scalp that probably shouldn't last a very long time or be permanent, if the guy's on medication, he was an older patient, his life was changed. I can tell you that Zarev has, I think, even though we can't really see exactly what he does, a unique skill set and the ability to perform surgery in a manner that a lot of these guys don't have. I mean, he has the strength, he has the stamina, he has the willingness, he's willing to work the long hours and do the work himself. I admire that, and that's unusual, for sure. Now, recently, him and I had a miscommunication based on, I believe, language. And I don't want to get into the particulars. But, you know, I'm not saying I disagree with Joe, and I think that all of his points are really valid. I do think that it's important, though, that young patients understand that this isn't for everybody. And also, I don't think he's really performing that type of extensive surgery on a lot of young patients, at least according to the information that I have. So I know a lot of guys are like, well, I want to go there because, you know, this guy's, you know, he's like a machine. I'm not sure if he would provide that service to a 26-year-old, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. That's a good point, Spence. Yeah, look, I'm not trying to slag the guy, but I think he, like you say, he's young, he's energetic, he does all the work, he's meticulous in the strategy of the surgery and the way it's planned out. But just, I don't know, when someone seems to hold their cards to their chest and say things like, oh, I'm not going to reveal anything because there's a patent coming up or what X, Y, and Z, whatever. I don't.
Well, and listen,
that's a red flag.
I certainly understand that. You know, one thing that I do like, you know, he contacted me today, and you know, we had honed down. You know, we have a Global Hair Loss Summit WhatsApp group, so I took a look at everything, and I'm like, okay, so who participates the most, and who do we think is really going to participate? And I removed Dr. Zarev because, you know, we had a discussion, and we're like, he's not really participating. I wasn't sure if he wanted to participate, so we just wanted something, you know, people who were willing to be active. And he contacted me, and he said that he was surprised that it was removed, and I said, oh, well, if you want to, like, be active, we'd love to have you. I mean, it's important to have different minds and, opinions and, for doctors to be able to share their opinions with each other. So, of course, I said, of course you're welcome to be on it. I said, and I explained to him that this is why this transpired. And we want the best minds and the most interesting minds and diverse minds to come together to share their insights and their information with their colleagues. And that's what Global Hair Loss Summit is all about. So I totally get your point, Adrian, and I get Joe's point, and I don't necessarily disagree. But I'm kind of the mindset of let's take the information that we can glean from, this type of work and, see if we could actually just improve the field. But again, I could be wrong. I don't know if you know any young guys that he's performed this type of aggressive surgery on. I'm not aware of any really young guys.
No, I from what I've seen, just in terms of social media that he's put out, which isn't a lot, I haven't seen any either.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
I like Dr. Patella in Brazil in terms of he shows a lot of his work, and if I had to start again and if there was no Dr. Sethi, I think Dr. Patella would be someone I'd be having a consultation with as a Norwood 7.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I've actually been checking out the work as well. He has not yet, and he may be. This is going to sound terrible, but the truth is, and this is, no hyperbole. We receive so many applications sometimes that it's just kind of like, I know that this guy is not going to get in. I can't even bother to take a look. But I really need to open up the books, and I told Joe that we're going to do this. And really, take a look and see if I missed anybody who should be a part of the organization. So I don't know if he's ever applied. I don't think that he has. But I hope that he does, because I think that he could really help a lot of people.
I think so too. There's a real need in that Norwood 7 area.
Yeah.
That I'm living proof that that belief that you're going to live like this forever is not necessarily the case. And Joe, again, I've got to come back to you, buddy, that the fact that you reached out to me at that time was instrumental in leading me out of the valley of death, which is what it felt like at the time, where suddenly I got to the point after 25 years of wearing a hairpiece, I can't do this shit anymore. And the problem was, it wasn't as easy as getting rid of the hairpiece, because I had all these horrible scars. That was the reason why I wore it. And I can't thank you enough, brother. I mean, you've helped me and a legion of people. So I owe it to you. And you, Spence, you putting the word out on your show is helping so many. It's irrelevant now as it was 10, 20 years ago, Spence. So, can't thank you guys enough.
Well, that's very kind of you, man, and I appreciate it.
Very kind.
And I would say that it's probably more relevant now and more important now than it's ever been. And, the industry is, it's not only is it a mess.
It's imploding.
It's imploding, and it's also being splintered. And, the ugliness behind the scenes, and now some stuff that's being public, it's fucking repugnant, disgusting. Now there's anti-Semitism being thrown around. I've never seen anything like it. I've never.
Hard anti-Semites.
I've experienced a lot in this field, but currently I'm experiencing pure, bigotry and anti-Semitism. That, I know that, I'm sure these mother effers talk about, me behind the scenes, and I'm just some Jew or whatever it is. And I've heard some stuff, and and I'm sorry that I'm bringing this up, but it's a little upsetting, to be honest with you. I'm what a lot of people, at least would consider to be a passable Jew. Now that sounds fucked up, but what does that mean? That means that if I'm in a room with a bunch of people, I get to hear all the anti-Semitic talk, because no one thinks I'm Jewish. So I was having a conversation I was having a conversation yesterday with this kid whose web person is Israeli. And I'm giving this kid instructions, to provide, like a wind down period on how to remove, our seals and our intellectual property and stuff like that. And this kid says to me, well, our web person is Israeli. He goes, those Jews, they always have some holiday or another. And I was just silent. I was fucking silent. What? And then today, there are brutal anti-Semitic remarks that were made against me.
About as bad as it can be, actually.
About as bad as it could be against me in what's supposed to be a physician message forum. And not a single doctor stepped up, or anybody stepped up to say, this is deplorable. If anybody works with these people ever again after that, knowing the blatant bigotry and anti-Semitism, I don't even know what to say.
But that is just insane. Look, at my work, if I was to even glance at a female in the most innocent way because there's a spider on her or something, I'd be sacked. Melbourne's very multicultural, so we've got a lot of Indians, Chinese, Africans, Europeans, whatever, and the laws are so tight. The whole culture now, of course, too. It's not the Benny Hill show anymore. It's really gone the other way, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But
dude, the thing is, this skinny piece of shit kid who initially posted this, who I could lift up with one fucking hand.
Yeah.
And his father, who's basically 2 years away from a fucking wheelchair.
Yeah.
If you look at this guy.
You probably lift him up with one.
But the hatred, I understand. I don't understand the basic hatred, either, especially given, the circumstances and given that, just 2 months ago, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. But to make, I'm talking about the most repugnant anti-Semitic remarks that I think I've ever read.
Yeah. I'd like to say it's ignorance, but it's beyond that. It goes
beyond that.
It's a pathology. It's a fucking pathology. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's just yeah.
But it's listen. It's hate speech. It's telling. It's
yeah.
I have to say it's a value in some, for some things, and everything's documented, and it's just, and I've heard it all, dude. I've had conversations with that one particular person, the father of this kid, where I don't know if he knew I was Jewish back in the day, probably not, but a lot of that shit. And then even though he knew, there were little Jewish quips and jokes, which honestly, look, I'm not sensitive. I can make a Jewish joke myself. But when it comes from a dark place, and it does, you're just like, all right, this is bad news.
Even more importantly, though, is why do those kinds of jokes come up anyway? It's like when is being Jewish ever in part of a discussion to where you make jokes about it?
Here's where I feel totally comfortable. Here's where I feel totally comfortable with it.
Yeah.
If a comedian's up on stage, and listen, the great thing about comedy is, you kind of you hone in on whatever stereotypes that might be there, and you're able to turn it into manufacture something that's going to make people laugh, not at the fact that the person is Jewish or African American or whatever, but just at some of these possible idiosyncrasies or stereotypes. And if it's put in a funny way, to me, I laugh all day at that shit. That's comedy.
Yeah.
But so I would never want to cancel that shit. But when you really see true anti-Semitism, You know, you got to understand, my father was a World War II veteran. He was a war hero. He fought over 200 days in the European theater. He fought Nazis. At the end of the war in Germany, he helped to liberate the German camps.
Jesus, yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, and this is a true story, I'm at a family gathering. I must have been 5, maybe 6. I think I was 5. I don't think I started first grade yet. And we went out to Brooklyn, visited some family, and there's people, a lot of people I don't even know. And I see these people, and they were relatively young, probably like 40, maybe 35. And they had these tattoos. And I told my grandmother that I want one. This is a true story. And so she had to sit me down and try to explain to a 5-year-old what that was.
Wow.
You know, so I lost distant relatives. I had relatives, relatively distant relatives who were in the camps. And I have a father who fought for this country for the freedom of this little piece of shit and his father.
Mm.
Anyway, rant over.
Well, rant warranted, mate, at the same time.
Is it?
Well,
anyway.
Look, guys. I'll sign off on. But again, thank you, guys, and also the Women's Hair Loss Project. I can't speak highly enough of why and everything she's doing too. I think as a guy, I benefit from watching her videos as well.
You know what? I'm sure she appreciates you saying that, and she's an incredible person. You know what? I should have her in the studio and to do something. I kind of turned my second half of the studio into like a gym, but I still have a studio set up, so I should probably invite her here because she's in town, and I had her here once. She offers a tremendous wealth of information, and I think her courage transcends just, she's a woman and she deals with women's hair loss, but her courage really transcends sex. I mean, a lot of guys can learn from her.
Absolutely, and that's what I want to push home, that message there. And she's like you guys; she hasn't sold out. You know, she could be making a mozza.
Oh, dude, she's been around since I think. Mm-hmm. I remember. It's got to be like 2006 or 2007. Like, she is the OG before any of these people came out, and she's never sold out. It's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah. She's been dealing with this thing as a couple of decades plus. So
she's extremely articulate, and she just communicates her message so well.
Her communication, her economy of words, everything about the way she conveys what she's experienced and how she reaches out to help other people just by what she says is pretty humbling, you know. And
well,
she's incredible.
That's great. That's great, and I'm sure she appreciates you promoting her message and saying such kind words about her. Adrian, always a pleasure, man. I'm so happy things have worked out for you.
No, thank you, and Jay, thank you, man. Again, thank you. It's like a debt I can never repay.
Thanks for calling in, Adrian. Always love hearing from you.
No
Take
worries.
care.
Keep fighting the good fight, and I'll speak soon.
We're not going anywhere, brother. All right, brother. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Listen, we got a few more minutes. We started a little late, so feel free to give us a call, 888-659-3727. Sorry about the anti-Semitic rant, or the rant about anti-Semitism, I should say.
The anti-Semitism rant.
Yeah, but it's pretty heavy. Let's see who this is. Oh, he just hung up. It's a New York number. Give us a call, 888-659-3727. Don't be afraid to give us a call.
A New York number?
Yeah.
A New York number?
That's not it, I'm sure. Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. We want to take your calls. This is the live broadcast. When will Dr. Nussbaum be on again? That's a good question. We should actually maybe have him on The Bald Truth as well, and just have him like in the center of us.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to do that. He loves being on. He actually wants to come back on the main event, so I'm sure he'd love to come on the Bold Truth as well.
He's a good dude.
For sure.
Good dude. I mean, I would say that incredibly underrated in the community, but in the real world, he's seen as like a really great surgeon, which is more important.
Yeah.
You know? But
I mean, that's the thing. It's like the peer praise is irrelevant to his practice, his patients, and how happy they are. Like the guy. I mean, when I first accepted him and I was talking to him and learning more about his past, I mean, the guy literally grew up in a hair transplant clinic.
Dude.
When he was 5 years old, he was sitting at microscopes playing with hair follicles.
His dad is Bernie Nussbaum. Not only one of the, premier hair transplant doctors of his time, but probably one of the top 5 nicest human beings in hair. And Aaron is exactly like his dad in that respect.
Yeah.
Totally respectful, good, solid dude. Loves Jews.
100%.
He is Jewish. 888-659-3727. Hey, you are on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's a New Yorker, Nico.
Nico, what's happening, brother?
Nico.
Come on, boy. Howdy. You got me all fired up.
Howdy.
I'm only a secular Jew, but I got the strong last name. You got me fired up.
Oh, dude.
You got to give me some names. Well, Hunters. You see Hunters yet?
Yes, actually, I have. That's interesting. That's interesting you brought that up.
My dad was a Holocaust survivor. I'm almost 50, right? So he passed away in 2020.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Real deal. No,
so
right.
where was he? Where was he? Do you know?
He was born in Poland.
So he's in Auschwitz?
So he was in. Yeah. Number 2. I'll send you some info. There's stuff on him online that I'll send you on. I'll DM you on Instagram. You can check out his story and my uncle's. But
I would like to see that. It's fascinating. So you kind of grew up in a world of it's funny.
Second gen survivors, they say.
Yeah, a lot of survivors had a tremendous, I would say, zest for life that I don't think anybody else could possibly comprehend. There was obviously a real loss. Most people who survived lost their family members, but there's also a certain zest and gratitude that most people can never understand. And I was around it, And when I used to hear stories of my dad, who was fighting for this country, and I just never forget when he told me when he first saw it, like the world didn't really know the extent of it.
I don't know. Denial is strong, and even worse now, more than ever.
Yeah. And
I mean, people go around, they don't even know about fucking who Osama bin Laden's name is, and we're talking about 2000, that shit.
Absolutely. But I mean, I have to say the repugnancy, the fact that this was actually something that was posted in a physician message forum for hundreds of physicians to read.
Well, if no one had your back, I'd lose my fucking mind.
Well, no one did, but it's okay. I also understand part of the reason is they don't want this sick motherfucker on their asses.
Right.
So they're just kind of like, they don't want anybody to interfere with their peace.
That's crazy.
But I can say that there have been people who have contacted me, and honestly, that's the reason why I know about this, who are sure to pass this information on to make sure that anyone who's established in any way in this field stay clear of this human being. Like, I don't have to do anything. This fucking guy is just imploding on his own.
But I'm on your side. Like, I didn't go to temple as a kid. I wasn't bar mitzvah.
I was.
But I have the strong last name, right? And I'm self-deprecating. and Larry David style, whomever, Jackie Mason, all those guys. Like I remember, and I lived some of the stereotypes as a kid. I went to private school on the Upper East Side, and fucking even as a short story, I remember I had a teacher who used to take us like sometimes we'd do like birthday party things at the school, like on a Saturday, and so there, and then like athletics teacher would take us, and I remember once saying to a friend after, like, we were playing soccer or some shit, I was like, oh, you want to go get some Chinese food?
Yeah.
And I was in like 6th grade, 7th grade,
Yeah.
and the teacher goes, just like a Jew. And I didn't even register that.
That is...
But it was so brazen. And then my friend who had heard a different
Where'd you go,
friend had heard
Dalton?
it. I got my mom and dad got a call that night, and they were like, "Did this actually happen?" And I was like, "Why? What was the problem?" I was like, "Do we not go up to Sunday's Chinese food?" But the teacher straight up said, right? So I got it. So I fit the stereotype, but it was like the teacher was so brazen. I was like, "That's fucking cocksucker."
And that's the way these anti-Semites think, man. These are sick fucking individuals, man. Where'd you go to school, Dalton?
Yeah.
We're on the Upper East Side.
It was on 78th off Lex, Alan Stevenson.
Alan Stevenson, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I'm a city kid
So
myself. I know all the private schools. I was in that club.
Were you Yeah. Were you like a Buckley kid probably or something?
I was not Buckley. I ended up because, the school was so close to where we were living. My mother wanted me basically within walking distance, so I went to the Dwight School, which at the time was on...
Oh, sure.
What was that?
Of course.
Yeah.
Dwight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Dwight School. So that was on 67th Street. Plus, I was able to get some financial stuff.
Nice.
My parents didn't really... I mean, my father did fine, but let's put it this way. Me and my friend, I don't want to put his name out there, we were the poorest kids in that private school. But what it did do for me is, my dad was, essentially, he was kind of like a blue-collar guy that went to work in a suit, took off the jacket, put on a smock, and then went into the factory. So it was, he's one of those guys. And so I learned to trade and all that stuff. But what I did learn from that is the sky was the limit, that I could do anything that I want. I mean, I went to school these parents of these kids were like captains of industry. I knew the kid of, at the time, he was the vice president of Golf and Western, who owned like UA movie theaters and movies. And he had like a 27-room apartment on Sutton Place. I'd never seen anything like it. And I knew like big guys in the stock market, and I would go to their apartments. And I couldn't believe how these people lived. But eventually you just become like, this is something that you could accomplish. You know?
I wasn't too far away, similar situation. My dad came over. He was just a commercial architect, did laundromats, just simple stuff. And I'd go to my friends I was an Upper West Side kid, so I'd go hang out with friends on the Upper East Side. I was like, damn, you guys have some serious pads over here.
Yeah, Park Avenue and the Upper East Side. And I mean, I knew, I went to school with a kid whose dad brought the Beatles to America. Yeah. All right, that is the type of people that I used to hang out with. And they were all very open and welcoming, and they didn't really understand. I mean, kids don't understand that shit because you're in the same school.
Right.
But I just never forget when I took a couple of kids back to my place, and my mother, old school plastic on the furniture lady. It was brutal, man. It was brutal, the teasing that I got.
I bet.
But anyway, yeah. So so you hear me, man. You get it, and it's just you're dealing with these what some people would consider to be very unsophisticated people from down south, and there's plenty of sophisticated people in the South, and they have these beliefs, man.
Right. Everyone's got a stereotype, whatever.
Hold on.
But just to let you know, I had your back, and I was pissed off.
Well, it's funny. I just got a message from a physician, and he said I can quote him on the air. Let me see what it is. I'll read it. Why not?
Go for it.
He said, and I guess he thinks this is the person, knows who it is. You really shamed old King Cole and son. Good job. He said, just promise me when he crawls back, and we know he will, that you let him know that this precludes any possibility of working together in the future. Fuck him forever. This is a doctor that just wrote me this that's listening to the show. Good for you, Doc. I'm not even going to name you because even though you said that I could quote you, I'm not going to put your name out there. I'm not going to put you in the crosshairs.
That's good. That's good.
So, I didn't realize that's
good support. Thank you.
Yeah, that's so fucked up.
Is that fucked up?
Well, obviously.
I can't even believe it, actually. You know, it's funny. Everything that's transpired these last few weeks.
I him for a consultation and just imagine if I had a problem, then I'd been like, oh, last name, go figure he's complaining. Whatever. I don't want to go harp on it, but whatever.
Well, it's very possible, but all I can say is,
very possible.
Everything that's transpired the last few weeks, I was just kind of like, whatever. It is what it is. Let the shit, let the chips fall where they may. Let him do his thing and implode. But when this came out,
damn,
that is a line.
When you throw that card on the table, that changes everything.
That is a line that cannot cross back. That is pure fucking hate speech. This is a serious situation. And he was pretty. Joe's situation is pretty fucking serious. I'm not going to lie. I mean,
that's extreme. The peak.
But listen, Nico. But honestly, you what are you going to do? You got to have fun with it, right? You got to just do what you got to do. You got to stick to your guns, and you realize in life. I think this is a lesson for everybody in life that not everything. The reality that's presented by a lot of people in this world is just a fucking veneer. It's a facade. It's complete bullshit. If you saw behind the curtain of what goes on with some of these guys in this industry, there's some really great guys, like the doctor who actually just wrote me. You would be fucking floored. So
nothing surprises me at this. Once you get to a certain age, like I'm almost 58. Nothing surprises me, and call it all the bullshit and document wherever is as needed, and I don't give a fuck anymore. Really don't.
All right, brother.
More stories for the future, boys. But have a great weekend, and hang in, boys. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, you take care.
Nico, thanks for calling, buddy. Spencer, I want to address something that someone in the chat room has said. We got our friend. Sorry, I'm hearing myself come back.
Yeah, I think I'm reading this, and I think that you need to address this. This is a friend of the show, and he's a little concerned, and maybe he needs to know the reality of the situation.
Well, he knows a little bit about it because we had a little bit of a DM back and forth earlier. I don't know if it was last week or when it was. Sorry, Hampton Hudson, but I'll go ahead and read his comment here. He goes, "I don't know how I feel about the bashing, seeing as y'all are legit one of the main reasons I found Cole's clinic. Saying I made a mistake? ? If so, where does the credibility lie?
That's a really.
I think there are a couple things to.
First of all, I want to say this. I want to state this clearly. The one thing that I will always say is that guy's got good hands. And he's done a tremendous work for a lot of people. So you didn't make a mistake. You had a good procedure. So to even ask that question it's unnecessary. But go ahead, Joe.
Oh, that's actually a great comment. It is unnecessary because I think that nothing that we have said is quote unquote bashing. And to recap, for those of you that don't know, I'll go ahead and say it. On September 15th, I removed Dr. John Cole. I revoked his membership as a hair transplant mentor doctor for conduct unbecoming of a doctor. because of I can't even call it a discussion, because of claims and insults to and toward his colleagues, in front of his colleagues, and some insulting comments he made about me. And this is before, and every other comment about me, most of them actually, were very complimentary about me, which is fine. But I saw something that disturbed me, and so I removed his membership. And literally like that, I became the enemy. I was called a loser. I was called greedy. Which, I mean, all this is very counterintuitive to what, based on what he had just been saying about me. Literally in the same discussion. Like, this isn't 5 days goes by and he finds something out about me. It was literally right after I said, you know what, we're not working together anymore. Please take down, things I've sent to you off your website, such and such. So at no point have I said anywhere through this that he is a bad surgeon. In fact, I've said the opposite. His skills as a surgeon are unchanged as far as I know. He's perfectly fine. He's very good with his hands, just like Spencer said. What I take issue with is, the bashing online. That's fine. I don't really care about that because it's kind of harmless. He doesn't quite have the bite that he thinks he does. He's done this to me before. It's all documented. It's actually still online. You can go to hairsite.com and you can find shit that he was saying about me in 2017. What I do take issue with is that same night after he was bashing me after I removed his membership, he literally sent me death threats. Let me repeat that. Dr. John Cole sent me death threats because I canceled his membership. This is documented. So I don't understand how it's bashing. Bashing implies that it's made up or it's conjecture. No, these are documented events.
Yeah.
Since then.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry. I just want to say one thing to Hampton Hudson.
Since then,
if Hampton didn't bring this up, none of this Joe wouldn't be talking about this stuff.
Yeah, we had no plans on talking about this tonight at all. But since that time, he's had a visit from the Alpharetta Police Department. And he's still, even while we've been on air tonight, has been on his Facebook page claiming to be a victim, talking about how his children are traumatized. His children are grown-ass adults. They're nearly 30 years old.
Dude,
playing a victim mentality.
Kid that I spoke to yesterday is 27 years old. By the time I was 27 years old, I was in a position where, because some things went unfortunately wrong for my family, that I was supporting a family at 27 years old. Now, eventually things got better for my dad. But I was supporting a fucking family. I speak to this kid. I can't even believe that this is a 27-year-old man. That's all I'm going to say. But the apple does not fall far from the tree, given what was written in public today. And you're right. I just wanted to say, Joe, when people talk about bashing, there's one person, now two, who are trying to destroy the reputation of other people and bashing publicly, privately, amongst physicians, behind the scenes. You know how I operate? If I decide to separate from a physician, I wish them the best of luck. I want to destroy their reputation, even if they fuck somebody up. Their separation from us and from what I do is punishment enough. I'm just glad that whatever complaint was filed, I received, And I was able to adjudicate that.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, his new mission is to harm people. He said it. It's in writing. So look, what are you going to do? It's the way it is, and I think it underscores and illustrates the ugliness and the nastiness and the toxicity of some people in this field. And I have to tell you that most of the toxicity over the last 20 years, I would say at least 75% has been wrapped around this physician. The OG, the OG online terrorist. I've never seen a physician speak of his colleagues or anybody else in the manner in which he does. OG, I mean, this is old school, like knuckle dragging, essentially illiterate bullshit that's being posted online.
Since he made death threats towards me, he has continued. He removed me and at least 20 other people from this large WhatsApp group that he had formed a few years ago that had about 120 people in it.
I think it was more than that.
Removed individuals so that he could continue to retell history in a way that it didn't happen, so that he could play victim and drag my name through the mud as if I'm greedy and evil. Those are his words. The day after, he was actually asking me to take on some other doctors and saying that I'm doing things right. But then he decides to send me death threats. Why? Because I told him I didn't want to work with him. Who does that? What kind of sick fuck does that? I have removed doctors and their membership from my website before, just like Spencer was saying. No one has ever seen me go on a rant, much less have an episode of my own show dedicated to explaining why I removed a doctor. Death threats are not to be taken lightly. And make no mistake, I've not taken it lightly.
I have to say that I had a phone call with a physician who, and I'm not going to say who because I don't want to embarrass this guy, but he's a very nice guy. He was having financial issues, and he contacted me, and he's like, listen, Spencer, I don't want to do this. I really want to be a part of things, but I'm having financial issues. Can I kind of pause my membership and, come back at some other point? No questions asked. Now, he didn't expect me to continue his membership because he's unable to pay his dues, like no other organization would in the world, by the way. And I said, listen, no problem, dude. And I said, do you need any time or do you need any favors? And he's like, no. He said he was actually embarrassed to talk to me about this. And he's a very kind guy. So we separated, but we had a conversation about this yesterday and some of the stuff that was being written about us and, me on in this group. And his thing was, look, he doesn't want to get involved because he knows what could happen. He doesn't want to deal with that shit. But he said, and he actually wrote you, Joe, through GHLS, by the way. He said that he wrote you in support.
I need to check my.
But this guy said that you've always done the right thing. You never attempted to retaliate or threaten me or to extort me because I couldn't or didn't want to be a part of your organization anymore. And those are the type of things that this guy, JC, is putting out there into the ether for mostly non-English speaking people to somehow digest. Because no one in the English speaking world who's been around this industry for any amount of time believes what he's saying. They know this is insanity. But claiming that if someone doesn't want to work with me, that I am somehow going to retaliate against them. How insane is that? So this doctor who wrote you contacted me. Well, actually, we had a phone call, and it was for about an hour, and just talking about this stuff and really how it is polarizing the field even more, how it diminishes JC's credibility in light of any serious physician, and that, you know, he supports our work. And that's essentially what the majority of normal people, like I do know that just before the program, JC removed a very well-respected surgeon who everyone loves, who probably tried to have a sit-down with JC in Romania to kind of set him straight. He's kicked out of his group.
Yeah.
If I actually said who this guy was, everyone would be in fucking shock. Oh, and I also want to say something. I don't know if Dr. Jeff Epstein is listening to the broadcast, but I just want to say that, you know, it was disgusting that JC would publicly put out, all of a sudden, you guys have been friends for 30 some odd years, and then state that somehow you are a inferior surgeon. I got to tell you, people,
yeah.
Jeff Epstein, not only does he have a tremendous practice, he has done more for this field, in my view, and he has helped so many people in so many different ways that, I mean, he puts JC, John Cole, to fucking shame at so many levels. If you compared his office and just forget about his business acumen, which is impressive. You know, most doctors don't have that. But just the way he, you know, his staff and the professionalism and the surgical suites and everything that people come back to me with as patients who contact us, there's no fucking comparison. So for him to go out there and publicly bash a colleague, that's it, man. That is, to me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and then this shit happened.
And this isn't hidden anywhere. This isn't private. This is on his Facebook page where he is dragging him through the mud. And this is,
and you know,
the reason, the same day, I believe, that he actually removed him from this Facebook or this WhatsApp group because he was stood up to. Oh, well, okay, you're going to criticize what I'm doing with, you know, with these accusations against Joe and Spencer and these actually it had nothing to do with us. It was
well, he stood up because it was a comment about the IHRS, and he happens to be a 20-year-old, you know, for 20 years an IHRS member, and Jeff Epstein stood up for his experience, and apparently John Cole said, well, the only good doctors in the IHRS are those who I've trained. And Jeff came back with a really eloquent response, you know, because he's literate and he's educated and he could string a sentence together.
And so the response was, well, you know what? I prefer an echo chamber. I'm removing you. And then he went onto his Facebook page and dragged
defamed
Dr.
him.
Epstein through the mud, defamed him. Yeah, literally defamed him. So to answer your question, Hudson, that's what's going on. There's no bashing going on here. Please don't say that. Please don't say that. I know that you have your loyalty because he did something good, and I would never challenge that. But at this point, surgical skill aside, I think it makes sense to question the stability of someone like this. You can disagree. That's fine. But don't say I'm bashing him.
Yeah, there's no bashing going on. That's unfair, and that's just not the truth.
So that's enough of that.
Another fun broadcast, by the way. I didn't think it was going to devolve into this. But, you know, listen, I got nothing against Hampton Hudson. I don't even know the guy, and I'm glad that he's happy with the procedure, as he should be. That's what we do. You know?
Yeah.
And it's okay to question what's going on if he doesn't understand the reality of the situation. And I'm glad that we were able to explain it. But the perception of the person who's making all this happen, I mean, it's classic fucking projection. It's this persistent victimhood. It's hilarious, man. It's fucking classic. It's it's like this, and I've been fascinated by this. It's this psychological defense mechanism to try to somehow, secure or make sure that it gives them a sense of self-esteem where self-esteem doesn't really exist. So they project what they're feeling, their thoughts, maybe even their darkest thoughts, on others. It's just, And I've even said this, I think I wrote this publicly, that I think it's possible or plausible that this behavior is somehow connected to some form of guilt, whether it was he harmed somebody, and again, this is plausible, I don't know, harmed somebody in his practice over the years or someone in his personal life. I have no fucking idea. But there's definitely there's a psychological and a physiological response that this guy goes through where he feels he needs to attack others when he somehow believes that people are disagree with him or attacking him. And projection and victimhood, persistent victimhood it's classic, man. That's a real, in my view, psychological disorder that's deep.
Yeah.
What are you doing for dinner?
So, steak. How about you?
I think I'm going to have a steak too.
Right on.
I got to be on the top. I got to be on the top of my game. So I'm really just kind of feeding my body everything that I need. Mm-hmm. I'm training. I got to be super sharp. And I think at this point we just have to, my hope is that we don't have to discuss this anymore on this broadcast. I would like to just answer people's calls, take questions. I'm personally, at least as far as this broadcast, I'm moving forward. Whatever happens behind the scenes or publicly and on different platforms, whenever, I actually put this in my schedule. You're going to laugh. First 2 hours of the day, deal with the maniac. It's in my calendar. I mean, that's for work. That's from 9 to 11. I work out before that and get all that shit done. I have to laugh, so every time I open up my calendar, it's going to say that.
Good times. All right.
All right, brother man. Great show. Callers, thank you so much for taking the time to call in. I'm not going to apologize for the inside baseball because I think it's necessary that it's out there. I was definitely taken aback by the blatant anti-Semitism. I've experienced anti-Semitism in the past, but this vitriol and viciousness I've never actually experienced, especially in what's supposed to be a professional setting. Not only is there no room for that, that is something that absolutely needs to be addressed. And it will be. So, until next time, folks, be strong. God bless. And thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you. Well, Joe will be here probably in a couple of days, but I'll definitely talk to you guys.
On
Tuesday, yeah.
On Tuesday, I'm actually interviewing, it's the great follow-up, 5 years later, Kyle Christie. For those of you in North America who don't know who he is,
talk about him.
You may have seen him. He's 7 seasons of the show on MTV called The Challenge, which actually did come to the States for at least a few seasons. So he was over here, and he was on the UK show Geordie Shore. Both of these are MTV productions, and he was the motivation and the inspiration for my basically 650,000 view video, Celebrity Hair Transplant Disasters, the Kyle Christie Effect. And at the end of that video, I said, hey, Kyle Christie, if you're watching this, reach out to me, call me, I can help you out. long story short, he did. And we talked about it. There's an interview where we talked about his repair surgery, which I helped to facilitate, actually did facilitate, and he looks a lot better now. But it's not done. He's still got more work to do, but he's happier with life. He has some incredible, heart-wrenching stories to share. Like I was talking to him 2 days ago, and he shared one story with me that it got me choked up about his experience with this bad hair transplant that he originally had that I talked about on my video. So I highly encourage you guys to tune in on Tuesdays, the main event. It's normal time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern, and 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. He's staying up late. It's 11 p.m. for him. He's staying up late to do the show. And he'll answer your questions. But I encourage you to tune in. I think it's going to be a good show.
He was really messed up for a while, and you really, you were great with him. You really were. You really helped to guide this guy. Did you freeze?
I didn't make a penny off of it.
No. Oh, that's hard to believe, Joseph. And by the way, Hampton Hudson, I get it. He writes, Spencer, every time y'all have been dropping hints, the whole pod, I know the deal. As a consumer, final result is most important. Not if he's nice or not picking sides. Hate this is all going on. And I appreciate that. But here's the truth. If this guy had his way when he initially tried to do this, you never would have found us, and you never would have had the result that you have. He wants to end that somehow.
Yeah,
that's
what he's openly talking about.
Yeah, that's what he's openly talking about. That is what you should be concerned about. And think about the thousands of people. I'm sorry. Think about thousands of people who find us every month who would have gone and gotten really effed up in Turkey, no matter what JC says about any IHRS members. First of all, there are members in the IHRS who will transplant circles around this guy. The dude could barely walk at this point at times, in my view. Sometimes I see he's in better shape than others. But, he's definitely not taking care of himself in my view. But that's besides the point. The fact that he wants to extinguish the opportunity for people to, at the very least, have a fighting chance, that's not going to be stood for. We're not going to stand for that shit. And you should be appalled by that, Hampton. Maybe you are. I don't know. But anyway, thank you. I always appreciate anyone in the chat, and thanks for participating. And Joe, go ahead, finish your thought, and we'll go.
I don't remember what it was.
Come on, it was a good one. How do you forget something like that?
How do you know it was a good one?
Because you were excited.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. He's openly stated that his goal is to shut us down, and he's going to be the arbiter of which doctors are good and which ones are not. Yes, that's actually pretty funny. Actually, like that's going to work in the medical industry. I'm sure no one's tried that before.
Yeah, no one's tried that before, and also I'm sure all the doctors are going to be very pleased about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, that's enough. Good night,
all right,
everyone.
brothers. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.